Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom Bus channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today, real quick remarks on the Bears. As always, we talk about the Chicago Bears and everything going on with them. I just got a real sour taste in my mouth right now after hearing some information. And as I said before, I'm not directly seeking out every press conference and phone call and interview and all those different things. If it comes across to me, it does. I know I could go to the website to get like the official press conferences and stuff, but in general, that's just not something I do. So every now and then you hear things that come across, and I'm happy. I'm happy people share those things and everything. But a lot of that week to week stuff isn't super important to me. A lot of times it doesn't really matter. But you know, that is what it is. And another thing, especially when it comes to like the future leadership and everything, I never really care about that because it's not a lot. Nothing can be done right now. And that's part of the discussion I have with, firing a coach in the middle of the season. But anyway, outside of the Eberflus thing, this has nothing to do with that necessarily. It kind of does in a way, but the Bears have 3 strikes. We got 3 strikes right now. And so actually, I take it back. It does kind of have to do with Eberflus. We got 3 strikes, and these 3 strikes really worry me about the future. I personally feel like it's bad roads ahead. So number 1, strike 1. We make Thomas Brown the head coach, and I'm trying my hardest to understand why. I just don't get it. First of all, you know how I feel about firing the head coach in the middle of the season. You know how I feel on the Eberflus thing. I'm not die-hard rage against Eberflus like a lot of these people. The season's over with at this point, and to be honest, again, this doesn't do anything. So you're not getting yourself any type of benefit by firing the head coach, but you do it to, essentially save face, I guess, to throw somebody under the bus, whatever you want to call it. Okay, cool. Perfectly fine. Again, not what I would do, but whatever. I get that. So your choice to replace Eberflus as the head coach is the guy who messed up the play call on that last drive. You're obviously not like the only issue, but your determinant issue to fire Eberflus was our last drive, game-tying drive, game-winning, game-tying drive. We mismanaged the clock at the last play. And yes, that falls on Eberflus. Cool, you fire him. But then you go to the guy who also was involved with the offense messing up. You start, as I said before, and again, for those that don't believe, you can easily go listen to the greatest people out there to tell you, like, football is football. Head coach, play caller, OC, in this case it's both, and the quarterback. Those are the 3 people responsible for handling the clock. Belichick said it himself. I said that. That was my first reaction. And so I said, you got equal blame there. Now, do you want to talk about prepping? Okay, fine. We can talk about prepping. You want to talk about, hey, you see the offense is effing up, take the time out. Cool, 100%. We can talk about those things. But at the end of the day, no matter how you spin it, Thomas Brown is part of the reason that was an issue. On top of that, Thomas Brown, or the offense under Thomas Brown, has not been that great. And everybody is like, I wouldn't even say completely delusional, because this is pretty standard from what you see. People see like 1 or 2 plays, or they'll look at some stats and be like, oh, Caleb's a totally different quarterback. He completely fixed it. Now, there's a nice long film session that you could check out to see that's not true. That's not true. It's largely been the same thing with a couple different caveats. And again, he might have had influence on that in his coaching, which is fine, but none of y'all know what he does as a coach. None of you knew what Waldron did as a coach, Gatsby, anybody else. You only go off game day. So going off game day, the play calling is not good. And the plays are the same. And so philosophically, and again, I said you can't completely remix an offense. And I haven't seen anyone say this, but I'm sure there's people out there that's saying this. Well, it's because Waldron's system, and he can only work so much with it. You do remember he was with Waldron, right? In Seattle, or actually it wasn't Seattle. That's the quarterback coach that was with him. But he was with Waldron. They came up under the same system in McVay. And even if that is the case, that, this is the playbook, his play calling hadn't been great either. And so, again, this is why it's a lot of reasons why, but I get so upset listening to people who only react off the result. That isn't the indicator. That's not how you analyze. So if Caleb makes a second play on a play, that makes Thomas Brown somehow better, even though he called a play that didn't work. If Caleb scrambles on man coverage 5 different times and picks up first downs, and then we score eventually, that means Thomas Brown was better. No, those aren't called plays. That's Caleb making plays. And so, again, that video breaks that down. On top of that, you had a defense that has been way outperforming the offense. And not only that, they're coming off probably one of their best performances where, and to be honest, this was Ben Johnson's fault as much as anything, but the defense was able to get red zone stops, either way you slice it, and by far have been the best unit. So you take a guy that has never been head coach, obviously, but he's already in a new position as OC, while now he has to learn another new position while performing his old position. So he's doing 3 jobs in one. Again, make it make sense to me why he was the pick. You should have had Eric Washington. And again, people can assign credit and blame the way they want to. But even if you give Eberflus, either you're going to give Eberflus credit for what he did preparing this team to be competitive, especially on defense, or you're going to give all the credit to Eric Washington. Either way, I don't see how that wasn't the choice. If I'm not mistaken, Washington was a defense coordinator. I know in Buffalo, I want to say he was the D-line coach, but I believe he was a D coordinator before. So this is not a new job to him. And so him stepping up to the head coach makes sense. That unit makes sense. Why would you take a guy who's learning a new job and give him another new job? And a guy that honestly hasn't been performing that well. And again, I hate to do that, but if we gonna do it to Waldron and everybody else, we got to do it to him. Because you know me, I don't think it's a one-person thing, but since y'all want to act like Waldron threw interceptions and Waldron didn't throw down the field, or any other OC, everybody talks like the OC is the one throwing the ball. Why isn't he throwing down the field? So if we want to do all that, Thomas Brown got to get the blame. All right, so that's strike 1. Strike 2. Saw that Ryan Poles is coming back. He's going to be part of the search and all that good stuff. I'm trying to understand how. I am trying very hard to understand how Ryan Poles gets to be guaranteed safe this far in the season, or away from the end of the season. You got 5 games. How is he safe? if you just fire Eberflus. I'm really confused about it. These two are joined at the hip. So, and I said this before, everybody wants to pin that first year on Eberflus, say, wow, they really lost a lot of games. Well, then we got to also say they put out a horrible team. And that goes against Ryan Poles, not for him. Now, do I personally think his decisions have been terrible? No. I think, like most GMs, he's got some good moves. He has some bad. I think he's been in some unprecedented situations that, you know, we probably won't see again. I don't know if we'll see again, but he had to make some tough decisions. He made those decisions. At the end of the day, even with the offensive line the way it is, because that's the easy thing everybody wants to talk about. And once again, I'm the one that's been saying the whole time, he didn't address the O-line. Yes, he did. What are you talking about? He drafted Braxton Jones. He drafted Darnell Wright. They kept Tevin Jenkins, moved him inside. They signed Ryan Bates. They signed Nate Davis. Now, again, did he miss on a lot of that? Yeah. But to say he didn't address the O-line is crazy. But even with that huge negative, I still am not like he's terrible. But as I said previously in a few episodes ago, going forward, I don't think it makes sense to keep this philosophy around. Now, this has been evolving. I talked about it from a team building standpoint with Ryan and how he sees prospects. I talked about it with Eberflus and how he might not have a good idea of how to profile a player, it seems like to me. And Ryan, what he wants to build doesn't fit Caleb. It doesn't fit Caleb. And I just don't know that's the type of team that we want to be. And so, and now I've had the conversation about the receivers. The personnel we got and the philosophy we run don't match up. Now, yes, can you bring in a coach to match up better with the philosophy and everything? Sure. But again, I just don't think Ryan's type of roster matches up with what would be best for Caleb going forward. And again, I've said I don't want to make this a Caleb 24/7 show in terms of the Chicago Bears, but the franchise quarterback is important. We can't we can't deny that. So the way that Ryan builds a roster, the way that he sees players, I think we need a new philosophy. And again, I highly doubt that anybody in the organization, anybody in the NFL really, maybe except a few teams, have the patience and understanding to really find a coach that matches up well with Ryan Poles. Because if that person doesn't have the name, they're not going to hire them. And that's the problem. That is one of the problems. Now, you can make a case that maybe Eberflus, that they did that. Eberflus was a head coach candidate. I don't remember who was available at that time, so I couldn't tell you his competition. But I will say, again, most teams, they won't do that. That's, first of all, it's been shown and it's been proven. Again, we got so much behind the scenes content now from people that used to be in the NFL. And so they tell you, and it's the owner. We know that any business, look, it's top down. That the person with the power makes the most impact on the organization. And when you got people that don't know what they're doing, meddling in things, this is what happens. So they said a lot of times the owners, they have the GMs reach out to the league. The league has a list of not approved candidates, but who they think are candidates. Owners want someone off that list. Social media, everybody, obviously numbers. Oh, this unit is doing this with the numbers. I want that guy. That's how it goes a lot of the time. So do I believe that we can harmonize a fit for Caleb, Ryan Poles, in his philosophy and the new coach philosophy? No, I don't. I don't believe that for a second. Not to even say as individuals, because I trust a lot of the football people. But again, it's the owners, it's the non-football people that I don't trust. They're going to want a name. And so Ryan Poles coming back like securely makes no sense to me. Again, it makes no sense to me. If you're going to tell me he put out a roster that is worthy of competing, then how are we not also giving credit to the coaching staff that got them to go out there and compete? Those don't match up to me. So if you're going to say the difference between winning and losing was just Eberflus, okay, I mean, maybe. But once again, and I keep saying it, and this is a person who doesn't even want to keep Eberflus, but you got to give credit and you got to have nuanced discussion and analysis. I can't sit here and say, I'm be mad we lost close games and also ignore the fact that we were in close games because of the coaching. And again, if you want to say the difference between what's going on is Eberflus time management and not the roster, I don't know that I would. Actually, I do know I would not agree with you. That's not completely true. First of all, there never is one difference, but there are some issues with the roster. And so again, not condemning him, but I think we would need a new way forward. And we're not getting that, apparently. Strike 3, Ian Rappaport. Now, I just listened to the video. The article I read seemed to exaggerate a little bit. Because originally I saw, and this is the first thing I saw out of it. Well, obviously Thomas Brown, we knew they promoted him. But the first thing I saw was an article that says Cliff Kingsbury is the top candidate for the Bears in the search. So again, maybe he tweeted that somewhere, but watching the video where he actually discussed it, he didn't say that. He just said that's a name to watch out for, and they expect the Bears to look at all the top candidates. And he actually didn't mention Cliff in that group. So my initial reaction when they say Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Cliff is the top candidate, I'm like, that's insane. That is insane to me. People, y'all gotta make it make sense to me. You gotta look. It's one thing for an owner to act like this, but if we got better Bears fans and analysts and all these people saying the same thing, I need someone to explain to me how, like, are we hiring a quarterback coach? Are we running a quarterback camp? Is this a quarterback development team or is this a football team? Because I get it. Believe me, I get it. I'm one of the first to say it. The fact that the quarterback coaches, that's really what it is, are in such high demand. They are rapidly becoming passing game coordinators, and head coaches faster than they should. And we're going to see a number of them roll off this year getting fired after all the same hype that people got about Cliff was said about him. And we saw how that worked out. A new group is about to get fired and we about to bring in a new group. And I just don't understand. Like, this is a head coach. I don't care that quarterback coaches are in demand. That doesn't mean I'm going to make one the head coach. Now, on top of that, Cliff Kingsbury was a head coach. We saw what happened. So you mean to tell me you interviewed Cliff Kingsbury? And make no mistake, Eberflus does not make decisions without Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren. So you can save the Eberflus picked him talk. Y'all interviewed Cliff Kingsbury. And you decided not to go with him as the offensive coordinator. So the next season, you want him to be the head coach. What is the difference? He was the OC with the Commanders with a rookie quarterback, and they played well. That's enough to make him the head coach. I really, at this point, just have co-head coaches, or just don't have a head coach, because all these people want are offensive coordinators. Just because you had a good offensive unit, which is, by the way, falling off a cliff, no pun intended. I know they just had a good game against a bad team. I can't remember which one. Well, Titans defense is pretty good, but not a good team in general. I know they had a good, and I'm not saying that those players are bad at anything, but I wasn't aware of like the stat about Cliff Kingsbury and when his offense falls off the cliff and like halfway through the season or whatever. And it's a lot of years where it's not a coincidence. So that's interesting. But even outside it, so even if the offense, they were very much top 3 efficient offense early in the season. Even if they were still rolling like a top 10 offense, what does that have to do with you being the head coach? When we saw you as a head coach, and I'm going to give people a real rude awakening. I said this before, earlier this season. I'm going to say it again. You know where you heard it here. Anthony Lynn is the running game coordinator for Washington, brought in by Dan Quinn. When the Commanders were one of the top 3 efficient offenses, they were one of the top running offenses. Look at Arizona when he was there, or any other place he coached. Has that ever been his MO? Has that ever been his play calling? It is different. And again, this is what I understand. And you probably see it where you work too and all that. People hide behind, I don't want to call it misinformation, but the absence of information. In education, we call it the black box theory. Maybe they say that in other places, where people don't know what happens. They just know you go in one way, you come out the other way, so it works. And again, we say that in higher ed because that's how they used to describe college, where people don't really know what's happening in college. They just believe that people that go to college are better. And so that was the way they describe it, the black box theory. And it's the same in coaching, like especially football, which is heavy team sport, where you get a guy like Geno that does well. And depending on which team you listen to, I'm listening to 5 different stories about how this coach resurrected Geno Smith. Now, how could that be? And then Waldron, being one of them, goes on to look terrible. So did he not know how to coach? And that's the thing. Coaches benefit and thrive off that. GMs, everybody. As long as you are around something good, it's the black box theory. Nobody knows who actually did their job. So we're just going to sit here and give credit. As I said before, you give credit according to the narratives, and then you're going to give a credit depending if your team gets that coach. Because again, out of those 4 or 5 people that everybody's talking about with Geno, every team believes they hired the guy that was actually the one, but nobody actually knows. Fans don't know. Owners don't know. GMs don't know from other teams. And again, when you know, it's kind of like when Andy Reid, when they talked about Eric Bieniemy, they said, which plays did he call? He called all the good ones. I called all the bad ones. He might have said that about Matt Nagy. But yes, you're going to put up a unified front. So when people inquire, hey, how was it? They going to say good things. You don't want to block nobody's success unless they're a terrible person. So you're going to say good things. So a lot of times like this, where it's like, oh, Cliff Kingsbury, everything's Cliff Kingsbury. Nothing, Jaden Daniels didn't have any talent. Cliff Kingsbury walked on the field, played 11 positions, and just rolls this team out of the ground into an unstoppable offense. That's the narrative. So again, I ask you, from your interview as an OC, for OC, to now, what has changed? And again, if you told me, oh, it's this top 5 offense in Washington, I still would have to ask you, what about Cliff Kingsbury makes you believe he's going to be a good head coach? It blows my mind. So again, that was my initial reaction. So I might do a little digging, might not, but we'll see if that's actually the case. If Ian Rappaport heard that Cliff Kingsbury is the top choice, then those 3 strikes together shows me the Bears are learning the wrong lessons. Again, with fans and whatever, it is what it is. There's casual fans, diehards, all type of stuff. But if the people making the decisions are seeing it the same way and making these choices, they're learning the wrong lessons. You watched what happened with the Bears and said, over the last 3 years, and said, we got to fire Eberflus right now. I don't think that's the right lesson. You decide to fire him, move on. Okay, the season's over, whatever. We're going to go with Thomas Brown. I don't think that's the right lesson. We're going to keep Ryan Poles. Don't think that's the right lesson. We're going after Cliff Kingsbury. That's not the right lesson. So again, I'll make a little exception for the Kingsbury. We'll see. Again, if there's any reporting around that. But at this point, I got no reason not to believe it. Again, there's a difference between him saying he's going to be a candidate and he's going to be the top candidate. Because if he's the top candidate, that means they want him. And again, I go back to my questions. So those 3 strikes, I'm out. I feel no different than I felt in any of these last regimes. And I think Caleb will be able to get through it. And I'm pretty sure that while he might get better, not as good as he could be, he's going to leave when he gets the chance. Why wouldn't you? Even if they completely overhaul, he probably will leave if he gets the chance. I could see his camp being that type of camp. So, and I don't blame him, because we've been in the same cycle and we're about to do it again. And also, I asked this before. I don't get no answers, but I'm gonna just tag this at the end. Can anybody explain to me again why Ben Johnson gets such a high stamp of approval, who has never been a head coach before, never spent one day being a head coach? Why does he get the high stamp of approval? I'm trying to understand. Like, it's one thing to be like, hey, he's got potential, head coach potential, but everybody's got to sell out to get Ben Johnson. You got to empty the bank to get Ben Johnson. Even in off season, I'm doing everything I can to get Ben Johnson. Last year, we got to pull out the stops, get Ben. Please explain to me again. As a head, don't tell me about play calling. Don't tell me about coaching quarterbacks, which he also hasn't coached a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback. But outside of that, I want to hear about head coach. Why does he get the stamp as a head? How do we know he's going to be a good head coach? All right, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.